everyone, welcome back to Must Read Monday. My name is Dabney. I'm the young adult librarian at the Twin Lakes Library System, and I use they, them pronouns. So, we're in a new year, 2021. I hope you all are doing well and are excited to start a new year, start some new books, find some new authors you love. I'm going to start off talking about a book that I just read recently from an author who I really enjoy. So I'm talking about Chain of Gold by Cassandra Clare. This has been on my to-read list for a really long time. I have to confess that I've had this book checked out for a very long time. But I just can never quite get in the mood to start reading it, and then right at the end of 2020, I decided, this is it. I am not going to end this year without reading this book. So I kind of sat down and, marathon read it over, I think I started this on, a Tuesday afternoon and finished it by, the following day. So it's a whirlwind. It's a big book. It's not her biggest book, but it's really large. It's, 582 pages, and then there is a short story at the end. So, I'm going to tell you some about this book, and then talk to you about some of her other books, because this is the newest series, The Last Hours, book number 1. It came out, I think it came out it was in 2020. I'm not sure which month. I feel really bad. I'm was it March? Was it summer? I don't know, but it came out in 2020. So this was her brand new series, and I'll talk about all of her other ones after I talk about this. So this one is set in London, England in the year 1903, so what is known as the Edwardian period. And, I'm not super familiar with that era, but that's okay. You don't have to be, a history buff to really enjoy this book. If you enjoy historical stuff, I think you're really going to love it. So, just kind of an introduction to this world if you've never read any of the Shadowhunters books, which is what her world she's built. It's the Shadowhunters world. So essentially, there are people known as Shadowhunters, and they have the, so the Shadowhunters were given powers by an archangel to battle demons. And so they have all these special abilities, they're stronger than normal people, and they can get marked with runes. They have this little, I think it's called a stele, that they use to mark each other with runes, and they can, those runes transfer abilities. They have ones for, speed and strength, and I think, invisibility. There's just tons. They have healing runes, runes that can help them hear better, just lots of different options. So anyways, they, Shadowhunters, are trained from a young age to fight demons. So there's them, there's the demons who come in through from another, the demon realms, and they infiltrate our world. The Shadowhunters are there to fight them off. There's also what they call downworlders. So these are werewolves, vampires, warlocks, and fairies. And warlocks are the product of a union between a human and a demon, and they are immortal, and they have lots of magical powers and abilities and stuff. So for example, one famous warlock who's in every single one of these books I'm going to talk about is Magnus Bane. I love him. He's one of my favorite literary characters. He's great. So anyways, that's kind of the world of Shadowhunters, and within this world there's different powerful families So some that you'll come across in this book are the Herondales, the Lightwoods, and the Carstairs. Like, those are the three main ones that are going to be talked about in this book, and that's kind of like the theme throughout all the books, is like mostly those three families. So it can get complicated. There's so many books in. I'm looking at my list and trying to do math while talking, which is not my strong suit. But I think there's 15 books like within the series. Yeah, so there's a lot to keep track of. And then there's also some books of like collected short stories. Anyways, I digress. But yeah, so I'm going to read you the summary for this book and then talk about it a little bit. And I'll just go ahead and say that even though this is the newest book in the Shadowhunters world, you do not have to read all 14 other books to read this one, because it's the start of a new series, and I feel like coming into this, even if you hadn't read the other stuff, you're still going to enjoy it, and you're probably going to get curious and want to read the other books. And like for me, I started reading these books when I graduated college, so like 2010. Oh, so long ago. So, you know, it's like been 10 years of reading these series, and, you know, I read like hundreds of books every year, so like my memory is not great. I can't remember a lot of stuff. So for me, like, I was reading this and I was like, okay, I recognize these names and these characters, but I don't remember like really what happened in the books. And I was totally fine. It did not inhibit me from enjoying this at all. Okay, so summary. An inheritance of shadows, a love in chains, an unconquerable foe. Cordelia Carstairs is a shadow hunter, a warrior trained since childhood to battle demons. When her father is accused of a terrible crime, she and her brother travel to London in hopes of preventing the family's ruin. Cordelia's mother wants to marry her off, but Cordelia is determined to be a hero rather than a bride. Soon Cordelia encounters childhood friends James and Lucy Herondale, and is drawn into their world of glittering ballrooms, secret assignations, and supernatural salons, where vampires and warlocks mingle with mermaids and magicians. All the while, she must hide her secret love for James, who is sworn to marry someone else. But Cordelia's new life is blown apart when a shocking series of demon attacks devastate London. These monsters are nothing like those that shadow hunters have fought before. These demons walk in daylight, strike down the unwary with incurable poison, and seem impossible to kill. London is immediately quarantined. Trapped in the city, Cordelia's friends discovered that a dark legacy has gifted them with incredible powers, and now forces a brutal choice that will reveal the true cruel prince of being a hero. Oh, I totally misread that last line. The true cruel price of being a hero. I was sitting here like, prince doesn't seem like the right word choice here. Anyways, so I wanted to show you this beautiful illustration in the book. So I love this illustration because sometimes I have trouble visualizing characters and what they look like, but this is great. So these are our main characters. Cordelia Carstairs, Lucy Herondale, James Herondale, William... Sorry, Will, I totally forgot your name. Last name is escaping me. Thomas, Anna, Alistair, and Christopher. And then Alistair is Cordelia's brother. Lucy and James are brother and sister. And then these are Lucy and James's parents, Will and Tessa. And then also I'll just say Matthew is James's parabatai. So just a quick note on that, parabatai are like bonded warriors. So usually like when shadow hunters reach a certain age, they can create like a bond with another shadow hunter, and that just kind of like levels them up. It kind of makes them stronger, like they're stronger together. But there's also like some downsides to that as well. But anyways, it's like one of the most powerful bonds in their world. It's kind of like almost more like important than being married to someone. So there you go. So that is the story. And as that picture shows, there's a lot of characters to keep track of, but the four main characters are Will, Cordelia, Lucy, and James, with like kind of Cordelia being the main focus here. And like I loved the setting of this book. Like I've always loved books that are set in London and England and kind of in this like historic time period. It's really interesting. Like Cassandra Clare, when she's writing this, she does use like the terminology they would have used in that day, which I always think is really cool. And then talking about some of the authors who are popular during that time, and just kind of the way that the clothes are described. It's all very like immersive, and even though, like I said, I'm not an expert on 1903, I felt very much like I was engaged in that world and could see things really clearly. Like she's got a really good gift for writing vividly, and you really feel like you're there in this story. And some of the things, like I mentioned, they talk a lot about literature, and one thing I've always loved about her books is at the beginning of each chapter it'll have like the title of the chapter is Better Angels, and then there will be like a literary quote underneath. So this one is from Charles Dickens, and it is, "The shadows of our own desires stand between us and our better angels, and thus their brightness is eclipsed." So I was an English major, so of course like I really love seeing all these literary quotes, and then I like how they're introducing the reader maybe to works of literature like you haven't read before, and you're like, let me check that out. And so yeah, this story, there's so much that happens. I'm not even gonna try to like summarize it because I can't, and I've already read the book blurb, and I feel like that's a good entry point for you all. But yeah, I absolutely came to love all the characters. I love how all of their storylines, there's so much going on, but I never felt really lost. Like there were times where I was like, I'm dying to know like what's going on with this person, because they are like super miserable and nobody knows why, and I need to know why. And then like finding that stuff out gradually as the story goes on, to me that's like really rewarding. And then just kind of seeing how all the stories intersect was really cool. And like since I've read all the other books, I really liked seeing some characters who I've like encountered before in other books, and seeing like kind of what they're doing now. And as always, finding out more about the Shadowhunter world. Even though there's all these books that have already been written, it's like there's still things you're learning about the world, and that's really cool to me. And I don't know, I think it's interesting how some of these characters in the book, at first, I'm like, this person's like a jerk, like, or a bully, and wow, like, they kind of seem unforgivable, and then you kind of like start learning more about like what they've been going through, and just kind of like hoping for them to like find that redemption. And I feel like all the books are really good about that, about kind of giving you this these characters who, some of them are like very what you would consider like super virtuous and, you know, whatever, but honestly, like, everyone is kind of like, you know, a gray person. Like, you've got things that you do that are good and things that you do that are bad, and, you know, mistakes that you've made. And I really like that in her books, usually, like, pretty much with the main characters, and even side characters too, it's like people have made like pretty grievous mistakes, but they are given an opportunity to change and make better choices and do things to kind of correct the harm that they've caused. And so, you know, at this stage of the, like, this is the first book in what is, I believe, going to be a trilogy, and I can see like that story arc starting to happen for some of these characters who are very troubled, and I'm just like, oh, it's gonna get better. I mean, I hope it's gonna get better, but there's so much going on. So yeah, it's emotional, it's entertaining, there's lots of action and fighting, there's lots of romance, of course lots of supernatural stuff going on. So yeah, I gave this 5 stars. I really loved it. I'm excited for what happens next. And yeah. And so real quick, I'm going to put this aside and just mention that, so we have like all of Cassandra Clare's books in the library. And I'm going to go talk about the series in a second. I'll also say that there was a movie released a while back ago, and we have that in our collection. There is a TV show on not Hoopla, I'm so sorry, it's on Hulu. So unfortunately, like, we can't provide you access to that, but if you're curious, you could check that out. I will say there are so many changes from like the books to the TV series, so like, just keep that in mind if you happen to be a Shadowhunter super fan and you're like, this is not the same, but whatever. I'm there for Magnus and Alec, and that's all I'm going to say about that. There are graphic novels, so the 4th Mortal Instruments graphic novel just came out. We just got it in the library. There is also a manga series that is based on the Infernal Devices, and we don't have that, but you could probably get it through Pines. So, real quick, gonna do a rundown of what other series there are, and I'm just gonna go in the publishing order for them. So the first series that came out is the Mortal Instruments. That's 6 books, and the first book is City of Angels. Then there is the Infernal Devices, and that's a trilogy. And the Infernal, so real quick, the Mortal Instruments, I'm not sure exactly what year that's set in. I think it's like the early 2010s, maybe? Don't quote me on that, I'm not sure. But I think it was like set in the year that it was like published, that sort of thing. But then the Infernal Devices is set in like Victorian era England, like I think the 1880s, maybe it's like before 1880, but it was around that time. So that was the Infernal Devices trilogy. After that, the Dark Artifices trilogy was published, and I have the first book of that one here. Ooh, a huge stack of books. Dark Artifices. And this series is set chronologically after the Mortal Instruments series. So this is 3 books. They are all really big, and I love them. This is my favorite of the series, though I have to say the last hours has got me hooked. Okay, so After The Dark Artifices came out, she started The Eldest Curses, which I believe is also going to be a trilogy. There's 2 books so far. The second book came out this summer, and this is co-written with Wesley Chu. So then that brings us to The Last Hours, as I mentioned. And I was also so like if we're going in chronological order, like when the events happened, I believe it's The Infernal Devices, The Last Hours, The Mortal Instruments, The Eldest Curses, and then The Dark Artifices. It's a lot to keep track of. But if you go on the Goodreads page, it's all broken down for you, so don't worry. And then I'll also mention there are short story collections. There's Ghost of the Shadow Market. Ghost of the Shadow Market. I don't think I've read this one, so I'm going to check it out because I need to get on that. There's the Bane Chronicles, all about our favorite warlock, Magnus Bane. What a guy. And then there's also Tales from the Shadowhunter Academy, which I have read. So, and these short stories are like co-written with other authors. So this one has Sarah Reese Brennan, Maureen Johnson, Robin Wasserman. So other people are also writing the stories in here, and I love reading other authors' takes on the characters. It's great. So yeah, and I really think, I said Magnus Bane kind of shows up in everything. He's great, and I like that the books have, diversity within them, like diversity with the characters, and also LGBTQ representation. So I think for me, like, reading City of Angels and the Mortal Instrument series, like, spoiler, but Magnus Bane and Alec Lightwood are an item, and I think that was the first time I'd seen, like, a romantic story about 2 guys in a YA book, and it was kind of revolutionary at the time, and they still kind of endure as this, like, really amazing couple, and it's been great kind of getting their story of, like, what they're doing, like, as they, as they're older and kind of making this life together, which is what The Eldest Curses is about. It's about them specifically and their adventures, so that's been great. And yeah, I've been super pleased reading all these books. I've spent many an hour with Cassandra Clare's characters, and it's been really wonderful. So hopefully you'll give the books a chance and check them out and read them. Or if you kind of are like, I don't have time to read thousands upon thousands of pages, which I feel you can go and get the audiobooks. So Libby is one of the apps that you can use through our library system. So on our website there's instructions on how to get on Libby, but there's a glare, so maybe you can't see this. Okay, well, pretty much all of these books I told you about are on here. They're audiobooks. Chain of Gold does have an ebook, so that's cool. But yeah, they are here. So one thing I will say about Libby is you may have to place a hold. Some things may be checked out, but if you go on Hoopla, you don't have to place hold. You can immediately check out the item and start listening. And they have, well, the only thing about Hoopla though is they have the City of Bones audiobook, but then the rest of them are just short stories. So, that's basically, you can go on Libby and be guaranteed to have all of the books, but you might have to wait for them. And then on Hoopla, you can immediately get City of Bones and some of the short stories. And I think the short stories on here are from, let's see, they're from Tales from the Shadowhunter Academy and the Bane Chronicles. And I don't know if these other ones, I think those are just it. Yeah. Anyways, lots of listening, lots of reading. And yeah, you'll just, hopefully, if you read them, come to love the characters as many fans have come to love them. But yeah, thanks for tuning in, you all. And if you have any suggestions for us about things you want us to cover in our videos, just leave us a comment, send us, an email, whatever. But yeah, I hope y'all are having a great 2021, and I'll talk to you next time. Bye.